Welcome to the Aesthetic AF podcast. I'm Tara.
I'm Sam.
We're here today with Dr. Jacinta Anyaoku. And you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and about your practice?
Sure, yeah. So I own a practice in Katy called Hibiscus Aesthetics and Wellness. And practice is a MedSpa. I am a board certified family medicine physician, also board certified in obesity medicine. So I do a lot of primary care, wellness as well in the practice. Been open since 2021 and have just been growing ever since.
Awesome.
Perfect. I'm excited to talk a little bit about kind of that transition from, well, maybe not completely away from, but that transition into the med spa world from family practice. Can you talk a little bit about what kind of got you here?
Right. Yeah, definitely. So I was in just regular primary care practice, employed with hospital systems, did that for about 7.5 to 8 years after graduating from residency. And for me, it was really when I started having kids, I just started to realize that that lifestyle was just not ideal for me, just really not what I was looking for, and was gradually starting to get burned out. And so I had my second son in 2020, January 2020. So right at the beginning of COVID. I feel like a lot of people, that was their transition period. And for me, it definitely was. So with that situation, my maternity leave ended in March, right when everything was shutting down. And there was just a lot of unknowns. And working in healthcare, I had a baby, hadn't even gotten his vaccines yet. And I remember asking to have just a little additional time until we figured out what was going on. And it was denied. And to me, you know, after working there for years, being a top producing physician, that was just a big slap in the face and just kind of told me that we're just a number, we're just a body, you know, and I knew that ultimately being an employed physician was just not what I wanted for my career. So I started exploring other options, other ways to practice, and I learned about direct primary care. So direct primary care is a model of medicine where the practice does not bill insurance. So your patients pay a monthly membership fee, and then you have a much smaller patient panel. You don't have all the pressures of insurance and hospital systems. So as a physician, you're able to provide care the way you're trained to provide care. And you're able to spend time with your patients. You're not feeling as burnt out. You're not rushed. You're not having to see 20 plus patients a day. So I decided that that was what I wanted to do. And I made the decision to open that practice, probably beginning of 2021, and put in my notice in around April of that year. And by August of 2021, I was open. And so, when I first started, and
you decided and went quick.
Yeah, I did it quick. And I had 2 toddlers. I had a 2-year-old and like a 2.5-year-old and an 18-month-old. It was a very rough time, but I was just very determined to do it. And so I started off just doing direct primary care. I always knew, though, that I wanted to have an aesthetics component to the practice. So that was from the very beginning of the conception of the practice, that was part of it. But I just couldn't do that right away because I needed to train and just, get that side going. So I started off just doing primary care and spent a year taking courses, training, learning how to do aesthetics procedures, just learning the ins and outs of aesthetics. And then a year later, so 2022, is when I started slowly adding in Botox, adding in fillers, peels, microneedling, things like that. And so from then until now, it's just been really growing the aesthetic side. And I love the aesthetic side. That's really what I'm more passionate about. And so at this point, it's definitely more of an aesthetics practice than a primary care practice. Still have my primary care patients, and some of them have been with me from the very beginning of when I started practicing in Texas in 2014. They're still here. Wow. They've moved with me from location to location, and they're here at this one. But yeah, that's been the story. That's been the transition of routine primary care physician to MedSpa owner.
Wow. I have so many follow-up questions. Because with a transition like that, have you noticed a lot of maybe back and forth with your patients? Like maybe they come in for Botox and then they find out about the primary and they do that, or they come in for primary and then find out about the other. How does that work?
Yeah, so there is some of that, but I will say that the majority of the primary care patients, that was all they did. That's all they want. They're not really interested in Botox and things like that. A few of them have transitioned over, a handful has, but it kind of has been a separation. And the aesthetics patients that are coming in, a lot of them are doing weight loss. So that is something that has been a big crossover. But as far as primary care, it actually kind of separated. And I think in the beginning, I was getting a lot of advice like, oh, yeah, this is great. Your primary care patients will become your aesthetics patients. But it actually did not end up that way. I really had to work hard to get the aesthetics clientele.
That's very interesting, because I think from the outside, you would expect, oh, that'll be an easy crossover. But looking at what that audience is like, maybe those patients weren't the right fit for the aesthetic side. And so kind of having to develop almost two different marketing strategies to get both funnels in.
Yeah, that is interesting. It's interesting to see. So when you talk about the like working to get those aesthetic patients, let's talk about that a little bit. What did that look like for you? What have you found to be really successful? What have you found that you thought would be successful that's actually been harder than anticipated? What does that kind of look like?
Yeah. I would say the most successful things have been on the ground networking. Probably that's number one. So networking groups. I did a lot of different things. I'm part of the chamber. I've just done, especially from the beginning, I was going to meetings, weekly things, that I put a lot of effort into that. And it wasn't instant, but I would say probably after about 2 years, it started to pay off. And so now I'm starting to see the benefits of that. But definitely the on the ground networking, moms groups, Katy Moms Network, all of those things, that has been great for getting my aesthetics clientele. The other thing is social media. I think social media has been beneficial. It wasn't quite as beneficial for the primary care side. In the beginning when I was just doing primary care and I was doing social media, I just felt like it just did not work. But once I transitioned a little bit more to aesthetics, then social media definitely, I would say, has been a way, not always consistently, but for the most part, it's fairly effective at getting those clients. As far as maybe what didn't work, I've tried, I feel like I've probably tried everything, ads. I do SEO, I pay my website company for that. So I've done a bunch of things, and it's hard to say. It's hard to know for sure like what works and what hasn't. But I think as far as being able to see tangible results, networking, social media.
Yeah. Wow. I think that comment of networking starting it 2 years ago and then just now starting to see it pay off is very important, because what we are doing today does affect our business years down the line. And networking is about building those relationships. And especially, you're a doctor, like people are coming to you for something very trusted and intimate and personal. So you have probably a little bit longer time that you have to build those relationships to get them from, okay, I saw you over coffee, to, yes, I want to come and put my health in your hands, or I want you to inject my face. But networking is, I think, a very powerful tool for that.
Yeah. We definitely both are the same in our businesses in terms of focusing on that networking and that like creating relationship, right? Having conversations with people and not necessarily anticipating that it's going to transition into an immediate situation.
Yeah.
But it does over time, right? But it is that consistency and the persistence, right? Which is so hard when you're like, if somebody could just pay attention right now, that would be cool.
Right.
So kind of sticking to it as well.
Yeah.
especially when you're at that 1.5 year mark where you're like, okay, I've been showing up for a
Yeah.
1.5 years
Yeah. Yeah.
and I haven't gotten an appointment, and being like, okay, keep going.
Yeah.
And then it finally starting to be like, okay,
Yeah,
here we go.
yeah. No, I mean, I'll have people that come and they'll say things like, "Oh, I saw you at such and such, and it's something that happened like a year or two ago, but
Yeah.
they wrote my name down or got my business card or something, and they just saved it." Or with social media, same thing. I mean, I do have some people that I'll post maybe a story or something, and they'll send me a message. They're interested. They ask questions. That's it. Months later, they'll interact again. I mean, I've had a few now that it's been probably like a year of occasional back and forth, and then they finally come. So yeah, you have to be persistent.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's interesting that your top two were social media and networking, because I feel like a lot of people don't understand how closely those two work together, because they see you at an event and then they go to look you up. And oftentimes they're like, okay, I'll follow them on Instagram, or I'll follow them on LinkedIn, or depending on what that space was. And then they're watching and they're waiting, and they're like slowly, your every piece of content, every touch point, you're slowly turning them into ideally that patient.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Well, and the other piece of it too is like really demonstrating your personality, because I think we undersell sometimes how important it is to just create rapport. And it's hard if you just have somebody that just comes into the office and meets with you for a consultation. You can generate rapport easily, with people face to face. That happens. But if they've already been following you for 6 months on social media, they come in and it's kind of like being a podcast host, where you come in and people know more about you than you. They're very like new to you, and they know everything about you. They know about your kids. They know about what last week looked like on social media or whatever it is. But those pieces are so important. And I think so many med spa owners sometimes think it's all about the facts and the details and the specifics and even the results. And I think all of those things are super important, but it's about getting comfortable with the people that you're going to be engaging with and understanding what it looks like to work with you. And social media is such a great venue to be doing that regularly. So I love that. Okay. So let's pivot and talk a little bit about some of the things that you see in the industry that are hard. I know when we talked a little bit about our pre-chat, we were talking a little bit about online people in this space when it comes to some of the weight loss drugs and the difference between the online providers that are out there and somebody that you're going to in person. So let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So yes, the weight loss, it's been up and down. So probably about almost 2 years ago now was when I started to really do it more in this practice. I've been doing it the whole time I've been a physician, but really like put in effort. And so I had a, very big boom initially at that time. And that was actually with doing ads, surprisingly. And that was the first time. And I would have to say probably the only time that ads have been successful for me. It was like a 3-month span and it just worked. And so, but then, things are changing. The industry was changing. A lot of other companies started getting into the space, and there just started to become a lot of competition. And so after a while, it did become harder to get those clients. And now what we tend to see is, because there are so many telemedicine groups that have popped up doing it, I feel like it has taken away from brick and mortar practices who are basically trying to do the same thing, but we can't necessarily compete. We, going back to the ads, Facebook, Meta, they have restrictions on what you can post. You have to sign up for something called legit scripts in order to actually even be able to really have your weight loss ads be out there. If you don't do that, your ads are probably not even they'll be shut down. And that's something that it can cost thousands of dollars. It takes time, it's a big investment for a practice. So for a small practice, it's probably not worth it to do that. And then people love convenience. They love to do things at home. Now, I do a lot of telemedicine in my practice. So I do have, my patients can see me virtually. They can see me in person. So, but, you're at home, you're watching TV, you're seeing commercials for Roe and this and, hims and hers. And it's just easy. You just click, you sign up, you're getting your medication. So I think that figuring out how to balance and compete and make yourself stand out from these telemedicine companies is something that those of us who have a brick and mortar practice are going to have to figure out.
Yeah. Well, and it's very much become kind of like the Amazon of getting weight loss medicine.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's, as a brick and mortar, how do you compete with Amazon? Because they're national companies with the ad spend to target all of the same areas.
Yeah.
So it is a very challenging thing to navigate. But I think that education of the value of having that provider that you can go see or talk to even online, that truly cares about, should you even be on this medicine? Are we tracking your health and what's happening because of this medicine? So do you want to talk a little bit about like maybe that process and the value that's provided with a brick and mortar?
Sure, yeah. So at least I can speak for my practice. What I try to do is when patients first come in, it's scheduled for 45 minutes. Sometimes I even might take a full hour to see them for their initial visit. And we are just talking about your history, what got you here, what have been your challenges over the years. What have you tried? What have you not tried? And I really try to get to the root of their struggles with weight and try to figure out what's going to motivate them. Because a lot of what we do as physicians, we're coaches. We are motivational coaches.
Yeah.
That's a big piece of it.
I
And
love that.
so, yeah, I mean, and when you're seeing someone in person, it's just easier to make that connection, or, we have more time. Telemedicine companies, I've worked for them. I do telemedicine on the side. So I actually know how it is. And I've seen both worlds. It's quick. It's a quick interaction. Sometimes it's not even in person. It's just we're reading something and ordering stuff or sending text messages to a patient, and that's it. So in person, we make that connection. I like to measure multiple things. So it's not just the weight. We're measuring waist circumference. We're looking at your body fat percentage, your muscle mass. So, I have a scale in the office that can do those things. And then we really talk about your nutrition. So, of course, a telemedicine company can offer some of those things as well. But again, it's not the same as having someone who is very invested in your health. And, me as a business owner, I want my patients to succeed. I want them to be happy. I want them to refer their friends to me. So I have an additional drive, an additional motivator to make sure that they're happy with their care and they have, a good outcome.
Yeah. Well, and you're taking the time, I think, to ask those questions that maybe a telemedicine provider wouldn't take the time to dig deeper into, because there are so many different things. I mean, I'm not a doctor, but I know a little bit about the weight loss space and all of that, and on my own journey. And there's so many other factors that go into it that if you just call the telemedicine, okay, I need Wegovy, I need this, like, okay, you meet the BMI, great, here you go. But it's like, okay, well, have you checked your thyroid? Have you checked your gluten? Like all of these other questions that need that deeper dive. And so I feel like that's really where some of the value, or the value of that aesthetics and primary care together, that's where I'm seeing a lot of that crossover being super beneficial.
Yeah, because I do have additional background, additional understanding. Having that obesity board certification adds to it even more, so I really understand the physiology, the genetics, and all of those are being pulled into my consults with my patients.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. I think kind of when you specified as a business owner, and I think that part's so important too, right? Is as a business owner, the results of the clients, obviously we want the client to be successful in their goals, right? So whether it's an aesthetic procedure and they want to achieve a certain goal, whether it's weight loss, doesn't matter. Whether it's they're coming in for some other just medical questions, right? And trying to resolve some sort of health issue. But it's that looking at it as a business owner and remembering that the way our practice continues is being profitable. So we have enough money to run the business and stay in business. And then also for creating those referral situations, which are so critical to continuing to roll through and having new patients to be dealing with and helping with their stuff.
Yeah.
It's kind of that hand in hand of, I like helping people. I'm in this to help people with their health journey, and I'm a business owner. And those two things are sometimes said like with a little like caveat of people are like, I also need to make money. And I'm like, you do need to make money. You are a business. It is critical.
Yeah.
Otherwise you won't be here.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I like that was even the wording that you chose, because I think so often we're reluctant to kind of lean into that piece of it.
Yeah. And I think, one thing that I try to do to set myself apart, even, from other similar practices is, yes, I am a business owner, but my main motivation is the patient. It's not financial gain. It's not profitability. Of course, the business needs to keep going, but the business will keep going. The patients are happy and they keep coming back and they send their friends. So the main motivator is happy clients, happy patients, good results, good outcomes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you're like, this is, deeply affecting me right now, or these are things that are coming up that I see regularly? Is there anything else that jumps out at you?
Well, we talked about the marketing piece in the beginning, and I said, the networking, social media has worked, but I still feel like I'm doing all these things, but there's not one thing that just is consistently bringing a steady flow of people in the door. So, my question is always for people like, and maybe there is no answer to this, but is there, be it ads or SEO or all the different techniques and things that are out there, what have you guys seen with your clients that seems to be, or maybe a combo of things that's the most successful with just foot traffic, if that's your goal?
Yeah. I get this question a lot. Really, I think it's important to look at all of the different things you're doing, like social media, SEO, ads, all that, instead of looking at them individually, making sure you're looking at them as a full marketing strategy, because it should be your marketing as a whole that's bringing people in the door, because your social media alone isn't going to necessarily bring people in the door. Your website alone isn't going to do it, because you have to use social media to drive it to the website. So I think it's making sure that all of those individual pieces are working or high quality enough and are working the way they should be, so that they are working together. And I think the main components of that are having a website that you can easily book an appointment or contact you, having social media that strongly represents your brand and what you're talking about and what the kind of patients that you're wanting to come in the door, whether that's more of a focus on the aesthetic side or the primary care side. And I know you'd said the primary care didn't do as well on social media, which isn't surprising to me, just because aesthetics is so much more visual. And then having that SEO and the local SEO component of making sure your Google business page is up to date, and all of those things working as well as they can work, so that nobody's falling behind, basically. And that's where I see the most success, is whenever you have either somebody that looks at the full picture, or you're able to look at that full picture and know, okay, everything is doing what it should be doing. And if it's still not providing traffic, something is off. One of those wheels are squeaking.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And the other piece of that is on the sales side. So what we find too is we'll look at all those pieces, right? And are they, first off, like really getting into your analytics with like a fine tooth comb to determine where exactly are people coming from? Like, what is their, as much as we can find out, their original connection piece, and then where did they go, and then where did they go? And sometimes that's kind of off the cuff conversations with patients when they're in your office too. Like, how did you find us? Making sure we're asking those questions when somebody's answering the phone, when they come in, really trying to get as much information as we can. We get good analytics from the social media side and from the web host to be able to see where people are coming from, but then kind of trying to figure out, like, did your friend send you? Is that how you first found me? Or, and people forget, right? They often will say things like, I saw you on Google. And you're like, that's unhelpful. How did you even know to look me up on Google?
Months later, you realize, no, you actually met me at this networking event.
Yeah.
And then you Googled me.
Yeah, Google is secondary. But the other piece of it is like analyzing, okay, so if we're getting X amount of leads, X amount of traffic is coming to where we're watching. So either coming to the website, booking online, or coming onto social media, then are we getting the conversions from that traffic? And are we working on the gap, right? So sometimes we see clients where it's a lead problem. There's just not enough bodies, there's not enough eyeballs looking at stuff to come. Sometimes it's they're there, but they're not engaging. So there's a little tweaks to be made on the content that's going to create some more engagement and get them a little bit more skin in the game. They're going to get more involved. Or they're there, they're engaging, but they're not booking, like they're not actually showing up. So then it is, how are they being talked to? Like, what exactly is our sales process of, once I know who you are, how are we tracking that? How are we connecting? How are we doing the follow-up? Like making sure that a piece of interest over here gets followed up with as many times as you have to. And it is often, you know, a lot more than we anticipate having to do. So there's that back end piece too.
Yeah. And I think we struggle with that, just the whole like being pushy, salesy. I mean, like it. It's just hard. It's hard to do that. And I mean, I don't know if you have any advice from that standpoint, just talking about money and pricing. I mean, I still hate it. I still cringe. Like I'll see someone for a consult for a procedure, and we talk about it, the results, what it's going to do. And then I save it for the very end, how much it's going to cost. And I'm just like,
Okay. There's definitely some things you can do. So some of the things that I tell clients, like right off the bat, I want you to get used to saying your pricing over and over and over again. So like the dumb recommendation I make for clients all the time is, every time you go to the bathroom, or even for you, every time you wash your hands. So that's a lot of times in your day. I know it is. Saying it. So you're in the bathroom by yourself and you choose like one of the procedures, or choose your most stumbly block, whichever one that is, and say it in the mirror. Like, okay, so you're here for the blah, blah, blah peel. That's going to be blah, blah, blah price. When would you like to book that? And you say it in the bathroom until it rolls off your tongue, like your phone number. So that then when the next client is in there, your next patient is sitting there and you're talking about it, you just do it. And it starts to become just an easy thing to say because you've said it 400 times this week. So it becomes easier, and it takes that feeling away a little bit. That's first and foremost a trick that works. And it's surprising if you dedicate some time to doing it, you'll just kind of desensitize yourself to how it feels. The other thing that you can do is just sit down and write out, why do I believe this is the best solution for the client? Why do I know that this is going to get them the result they want? What is the outcome? What does it look like? All of those things. And you can just get your brain into that philosophy of like, this is you offering the solution they're seeking. And they're, of course, willing, able, and very happy to pay you to provide a solution to the thing that they're trying to achieve. So if you write that out, even take like 1 minute and write, what are the top 5 reasons people come to me to deal with their whatever, their wrinkles, their skincare, whatever. And I would do it in individual services you offer so that it starts to become just, right, this isn't me trying to be salesy. This is me being an excellent provider and giving them exactly what they want, and I can help them and really lean into why it's worth it for a client. Like, what does it do to them long term if they lose the weight that they're aiming for? You know what those results do in so many facets of their life right? So writing that down and reminding yourself of that makes it easier to say, okay, so we're going to work together for 6 months or 12 months,
Yeah.
and this is what it's going to look like, and this is the cost of that, and this is the outcome. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good advice. Definitely.
It's hard.
Yeah.
I struggle with it too. I think most business owners,
Almost
unless,
everybody I talk
yeah,
to.
unless they're literally a sales coach, struggle with the pricing thing.
Yeah.
And I think it's also remembering that pricing isn't personal.
Yeah.
It's not like, okay, I'm charging this much because you're you. It's like, no, this is just how much it costs.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can afford it, great. I'd love to help you. And if not, I also understand.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think, yeah.
No, that's just generally the approach I take. I mean, I think we do get a lot of price shoppers. They're calling.
Absolutely.
And, yeah. Botox and weight loss are the two things that, what's your price per, what's your price per unit? And that's all I care about.
Well, and that's an interesting topic too to discuss, because are price shoppers even who you want coming in?
Yeah, no,
Because
really.
are they creating that long-term relationship?
Yeah.
Probably not. They're just waiting for the next best deal. They might come in for this first time, which depending on how it's priced, you're probably not making a ton off of either one. And so it's just,
Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes that price war stuff, it's really worth analyzing, trying to stay out of the mud on that if you can, right? And having it be like, what can we offer over and above? What can we offer in conjunction with, and creating a higher level of value? And then it is coming up with strategizing on like, what are the ways we're going to say that? So when somebody calls in and they are a price shopper, what is the verbal way we respond to that? What is our comeback? And it's not necessarily going to be like, I know it's not $4 a unit, but like, okay, we're not going to say it's $4 a unit. We're actually going to say the way that we work here is blah, blah, blah. This is the value. The approximate price might be this. So the price becomes like the second or third piece of that, as opposed to us responding with like what our rate is right now, or if we have any specials coming on. And you just steer it, and it will get rid of some of those price shoppers, right? So it does mean those people, if you're getting them to come in a little bit, you won't get them as often. But what you will get, hopefully, is the client that is like, I absolutely value XYZ, and I'm coming for that, which long-term creates just more long-term patients for you as well.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. That was really good. I think there's a lot of conversations, there's a lot of pieces here to take from this conversation. And I know some of the other listeners are going to have the same sort of thoughts, right? The same sort of challenges, the same sort of wins, and that constant striving towards, how do we do this better? How do we create the patients that we want to create? How do we serve them so excellently that they are walking away talking about you in rooms that you haven't even been in, right? Creating those ambassadors out in the world. So thank you for bringing all of that up. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. This is great.
Yeah, anytime. It's great because you're local too, so we get to come and visit you in the shop too. That'll be fun.
And we're going to put Dr. Jacinta's Instagram and website and all of that in the show notes as well. So be sure to check that out and give her a follow.